Hey Andy, how are you? My name is Pádraig Walsh. I'm an attorney and I am the founder of Walsh Law PLLC, a law firm dedicated to working with parents who are having legal issues gaining access to their children.
Okay. Where can you work?
So I'm licensed to practice in the state of Minnesota.
Okay.
So because of the pandemic and everything, everything has moved online as far as the family court system goes, except if you were to actually go all the way to trial. So any kind of pre-motions or discoveries or meetings with the judge and opposing counsel is now all done on Zoom. So that expands my area where I'm not kind of tied to a 3-4 mile radius of my office. I can operate anywhere in the state of Minnesota.
Great. Tell me about. I mean, it's an interesting subject. Tell me how you became involved in this and why you've chosen this. Talk to me about law and your choices within the sphere of being an
So
attorney.
my story, I kind of took an alternative route to the law. Um, some people say that I was late coming to the law, but this isn't a career for me. Really, this is a mission. So basically, my story starts back in 1994 when I emigrated from Ireland. I was 17 years old at the time, just finished high school, but wanted to experience something else. So I moved to Chicago, Illinois, where, like many Irish immigrants, I got a job in the construction industry where I served a carpenter's apprenticeship. Then worked as a carpenter and thankfully was able to work my way up within the company to become an assistant project manager for large high-rise developments in Chicago. Um, while I was living in Chicago, I met a girl and we got married and we had a child together up until 2008 when the financial crash came. My now ex-wife filed for divorce, which sadly became very toxic. But once the divorce was finalised, because of attorney's fees and as time passed, and then the financial crash and the company I had worked for had gone belly up, and so any savings that we had were depleted because we were trying to keep a house mortgage paid on a house and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So when the divorce was finalised, basically there was nothing left to disperse between me or my ex-wife. We had to short sale the house because we were right in the middle of the financial crash. Lucky enough to get enough money to cover the note that we owed the bank. So thankfully we didn't have to file bankruptcy. But I guess my ex-wife felt she did not get what she truly deserved from the divorce. And the last thing that she'd left to use against me was my child. So access to my child basically went from very regular to zero, which then in turn created a whole new litigation and in and out of court, just trying to get access to my child. And no matter what was done in court, it just seemed to be going backwards. They just seemed to keep putting hurdles in my way. And
Is this Illinois?
in Illinois, yes. As far as the divorce was going, it was kind of, that was material stuff, you know. It was like, well, you know, bank accounts and whatever, cars. But
And you were in agreement up to that point with how things were going, except with the financial problems.
yes, there was never no issue as far as me being a part of my son's life until after the divorce. So the first time I was ever inside in court was, you know, for my divorce. And then I guess the way the system is developed, you know, it's just kind of ingrained in everybody. You get in trouble with the courts. Even though I wasn't in trouble, it was kind of like the courts basically were to help me out. But you know, there's when you're not used to courts,
You're
you have
intimidated by it.
you're
Sure.
intimidated by it, and you have that fear. But the first thing I did was hire an attorney to basically look after my best interests and to be my advocate. And then we were in and out of court for a number of years, trying to settle the issue of child visitation.
So this doesn't happen quickly. How old is your
Well,
son now?
So my son is 16 now. He'll be turning 17 in November. So there's a lot of years a lot of water under the bridge.
When did you get your rights to visit, spend time with him back?
I never got my rights to visit him because there was, how would I put it? Well, so I hired an attorney. I went to court, basically thought it would be plain and simple that I, as the child's father, I had my rights and my rights to visit the child, and I didn't have any record or anything like that as far as criminal or misdemeanors or anything. But it was opposing counsel who was very aggressive, and opposing counsel kept putting roadblocks in the way. So I would go to a court appearance. My opposing counsel would start by basically calling me names and getting me riled up. And then my attorney, I don't know if he did the best to protect me. But the judge then, it was all he said, she said. So the judge would say, okay, listen, you guys have to try and sort it out. See you guys in 90 days. So then that's another 90 days of not visiting with your child. Come back into court. Well, what have you sorted out? Well, they've nothing sorted out. Okay, well, see you in 90 days. So nobody was willing to work with me or anything like that. But then we got to a situation where the judge was saying, okay, you guys have to do something. Okay, well, now we want him to go through supervised visitation. 6 months of supervised visitation, 1 visit per month. Basically went from every other day to not seeing my child for like 6 months, and then to 1 visit per month being supervised by a stranger. But I felt, okay, well, I will go through this charade, I thought it was, but I said, okay, I will go through this to be with my child. Got very favourable reports back.
From the observer,
the observer.
Okay. So this was a social services person?
Well, it was a private company, actually. And
okay.
It's kind of like everything else, it all boils down to money,
It gets privatized, sure.
Yeah, so, but favourable results. Went into court with my favourable results, thinking that, okay, now the judge is going to help me get back access and visitation and get me a schedule to stay in my child's life. But then opposing counsel throws up, oh, well, now we want a psychological evaluation. So then that puts everything back another 3 months, 6 months. So go get a psych eval, come back with another favourable report. Oh, well, now we want him to do this. And so as time went on, I suppose I spent, maybe 3-4 years in and out of court kind of every 90 days.
He's 6 or 7 by this time.
He's running 6 or 7 then at this time, yeah. And basically I ran out of money. I couldn't afford to pay my attorney anymore. There was no resolution in the court because nobody was advocating or telling my story. It was just always like whoever spoke loudest and whoever was most aggressive got the court's attention, but nobody was telling a story, whether that story be stitched in with legal theories, with legal precedents, and stitching the facts of the story in. So nobody was advocating. It was just a screaming match every time we went. So basically the last day I walked out of court, knew that was going to be my last day because I couldn't afford to go again. There was a lot of emotions, and I remember standing outside the court on the sidewalk, and basically I had a decision to make. One decision would have been very detrimental to me and to, everything that, my future and the whole lot. But the other decision was people should not have to go through this. There has to be help out there. I wasn't able to find the help, so why don't I become the help? And then that was the day I made the decision to basically quit my job and return to full-time education with the goal of getting into law school to become an attorney, to in the future advocate for parents who are having legal issues gaining access to their kids. So, once you pass the bar exam and you get admitted into a state to practice, get your license, you can basically practice any type of law you like. You can be a general practitioner, basically, whether you'll do wills and trusts and all that kind of stuff, or you can do wills and trusts and divorce. You can do basically whatever you want. But my aim always was to work with parents who are having legal issues, gaining access to their kids, because of my own personal experience with it. Because I know the dark place that people can end up in. Going through, it's a trauma. It's a very traumatic experience for people. And what I learned then when I went back to school was, because basically when I was going through it, I kept blaming the judge. It was the judge's fault. The judge wouldn't make a decision. The judge, it was, and that was that, and I think that's what a lot of people do. But that was a total wrong conception that I had of how the courts work. Basically, it's the advocate, your attorney or yourself, if you're representing yourself, that has to tell this story. It's not up to the judge to decide something without a story. So when I say a story, I mean there has to be legal research. There has to be the law. Basically, the advocate has to marshal the judge through what's going on. But if you're just going into court and say, oh, well, he is this and oh, she is that, the judge is like, dude, I don't have any time for this. You're not telling me anything. So what I've learned through my experience now, my personal experience and my experience at law school and moving into private practice, is the judge, you explain to the judge, here's the law that we're dealing with. This is how the law is applied, using cases that have gone before to explain, here's what other judges, here's how they applied the law. The judge then has a story, a step-by-step story. Okay, well, here's the law. Here's how it's applied. Here are the facts of the case tied in. So that means if everything is researched properly and documented properly, the judge then has to make that decision. So the judge really doesn't have any thinking to do, because the decision should already be made for the judge by your advocate's legal research and stitching the story together.
So you, as you were going through this and you were realizing the problems and troubles that you were having and how difficult it was finding resolution with your ex-wife, you went to school, you learned an awful lot about the law, but in your personal experience, you learned about this kind of tragedy. It's tragic for everyone. It's tragic for your son because he doesn't have his father around. It's difficult for you, obviously. I'm sure it's even difficult for your wife. Mm-hmm. It's tough for everybody. That experience brings you to advocating for other people. I'm sure they have their own experience or there's unique things. How do you, if you're sitting down with somebody for the first, second, third time, how are you understanding the story of their divorce, of their marriage, of their relationship with their children? What are you looking for? What are you talking about?
My experience is, look, it's a very dark place. And I'm going to admit it right here, right now. I contemplated suicide, being in that position. And I know every year parents, fathers, mothers do commit suicide. They go all the way to do it because they're so heartbroken and they're so lost, so traumatized by what's going on in the legal system. Now, whether we blame the legal system or we blame the advocacy, they're kind of two different things. But we have a legal system. What we need to do is be able to understand it and advocate by using it. So when I sit down with a client, I think the first thing that needs to be done is your first interview basically is venting. Because I'm just, again, from my own experience, that's what I did. I just vented and vented. Oh, I want revenge. She's going to get nothing, and that's what parents do. So when it boils down to it, every case is very similar when it comes to people having issues gaining access to their children. So I basically let a potential client, I let them vent. Then I kind of circle back and explain my story and explain, hey, I know exactly how you're feeling because this is my story and my story very much matches theirs. And then I try and set up a second interview where I talk about, hey, we got to focus, So what I try and do is basically recalibrate their focus from their ex-spouse to their children and the well-being of their children and their children's right to have two loving parents. And once I can recalibrate them to refocus just on their children, then that takes a lot of the anger out of, because it's anger towards your ex-spouse. There's no anger to your children. There's nothing but love to your children. But whether you're angry at your ex-spouse, your children shouldn't have to go through this.
Mm-hmm.
So then we move forward, and my belief then is that if you don't engage with the other side because they want revenge and they're using the children, and once you start getting in front of a court and start advocating properly with the law, with the facts, explaining to the judge or the referee, here's what we're working with, here are the facts. The other side then can jump up and down and do all they want and call you names, as long as my client is focused and the judge then does not see my client reacting, because it's a theatre. Attorneys basically are actors and they're trying to play a role. And if you're trying to play the role of being this aggressive counsel just to throw off the other side, throw off the person who you're being aggressive towards, and then that person snaps in front of the judge and says, you know what, F you, there's an opposing counsel there calling you a liar, calling you, names like you're an alcoholic, you're a drug addict,
Even if they're not true.
Even if they're not true.
They can actually make this stuff up.
They can still make the stuff up, but then somebody then just reacts and says, F you, you're nothing but a liar. But the judge sees that reaction, and then you kind of do set yourself in a stereotype. But what my aim is, because of my own personal experience, and I think I'm more qualified to speak with parents who are having these issues, to try and calm them and center them. So when we do go in front of the court, no matter what's thrown at us, that we do not react. But then when it's our turn to speak, then we speak to the judge and we marshal the judge or the referee through what's going on by using the law, by using the facts, by using legal precedents, basically court cases that have gone before us. So then that advocacy in turn should turn into a quicker resolution, because you're giving the judge something to work with, something to make a decision with. And the child being caught in the middle of this does not do a child any favors moving forward in their own lives. The child deserves two loving parents, and I'm willing to play that role if I'm allowed. And so when I hired my attorney then to gain access to my child, I said, this is not about revenge to my ex. This is about my child's right to have a father in his life, whether that be a full-time father or not, but at least he deserves to have a relationship and not be caught in the middle of all this. Opposing counsel was very aggressive, which happens a lot. And I think their strategy was that, well, we'll just keep throwing roadblocks in the way until he runs out of money.
So that's what happened.
It is what happened. And I think that was their strategy from the start. There was never no goodwill there to try and come to a resolution for the child's best interest. When opposing counsel got aggressive, then my counsel got aggressive, and then the judge is in the middle and is kind of saying, this is just he said, she said. There's nothing I can do. You're not giving me anything. And that's kind of back to where nobody was telling my story. Then, of course, I got to a point where just the darkness of between 90 days between court appearances, being by myself, living alone, no contact with anybody. I also felt that it was very difficult to speak to my friends about it, because I genuinely thought I was the only one in the world going through it. I was the only person in the world that didn't have access to their child. So my friends, well, they're not going to understand, so I couldn't talk with them. I didn't share with anybody what I was going through. I went back to school. I was 34 years old, started off in a community college because I had to get a bachelor's degree first, then got into law school. But basically the mission was that I'm going to get accepted to a law school. I'm going to become an attorney with the mission of helping parents who find themselves in a similar situation as I did. But where I differ is, one, I understand how you feel. Person who finds themselves in a situation where they can't gain access to their kids because of the legal system and because of a vengeful ex, they need more than to be just an account. They need more than just to be a billable hour, because of the emotions and the loneliness and the anger and the despair that's involved with it all. So that's kind of puts me front and center as far as just this one issue. I don't care about divorce. I mean, I'll help you through a divorce, but that's only splitting material things. I care about your children. I care about you. So I have that emotional capacity because I understand exactly what you're saying. So I want you to get emotional with me. I want you to tell me your darkest fears. Then I understand billable hours, because the sooner that we can advocate to the court, not by oh, well, he said this and she said that. It's actually by marshalling the judge or the referee through what's going on. That speeds up the entire process. Because if we can show the judge and the referee, here are the facts of the case, here's the law, here's how it's decided, the judge then will make a decision. That then in turn should get you back into your children's lives sooner rather than later. But then what I add extra, which no law firm in the world, I believe, I add mindset coaching for my clients. I gift them a course from a world-renowned action philosopher who has built and designed a course specifically for my clients. But he is building this course for me and for my clients so that I can gift it to them to help them with the darkness and the loneliness. So basically what this course will do is help you with your mindset, help you with your thoughts, help you to control yourself, to focus yourself, to learn more about yourself. You do have these voices. Everybody has these voices in their head, and you're going through this experience and you have these voices in your head, and one is saying, oh, F her, F him, whatever, where then it's like, well, it's your fault. It's, why did you do this? And you start getting really hard and difficult on yourself. And then that could lead to more mental problems down the road, where mindset is like, this is just a pothole in the grand scheme of your life. This is something that we're going to get through, but we'll get through it together. And we need you to be more focused and easier on yourself to say, the past is gone. Every time you recall the past, you recall it a different way. You never recall it the exact way it actually happened. So the past is basically like the trailing of a ship. It just disappears, and then you just don't remember it, but you remember it the way your mind wants to remember it, and then that gets you into, a bad mood or whatever.
Bad marriage.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do then is bring you into the present and say, here and now, because that's all you have is now. Future doesn't exist. Your future is not wrote for you. It's up, what the decisions that you make now is what creates your future. So what we're trying to do with this course is to help somebody kind of banish the demons of the past, become more present in themselves, and then create a new future that they never thought was possible. And that this issue that they're dealing with right now is a very small blip on a radar when you take your entire life into focus. So there's no law firm doing this. This will not be available to the public. This will be only available to clients who decide
employ your services,
to employ my services, who decide to engage me as their representation and their advocate. That then this will be gifted to them to basically help them through with their emotions and the anger and the fear that they feel.
I mean, it sounds fantastic. It sounds like the right thing to do.
The size of your bank account should not determine whether you're a good parent or not to your children. And the sooner that we can get you through the system by not engaging with an aggressive counsel, not getting involved in that theatre, the sooner that we can marshal the judge or the referee through exactly what's going on, tied in with the law and legal precedents, the sooner we get that resolution, and the sooner we get you back into your children's lives. And that is my hope. I'm not looking at anybody as an account. I'm looking at them as a person, looking at them as I was there. I was that person. And I don't want that person to have the feelings or the anger or the loneliness that I had. And the way to do that is, let's get you through the system as efficiently as possible. And let's get you back into your child's lives. And let you have money left over so that you can go and hang out with your kids. So I have a website. It'll be launched hopefully in the next 2 weeks. It is www.thelegaldad.com. Thelegaldad.com. My email is pwalsh, P for Padraig, Walsh, WALSH, at thelegaldad.com. I also have a Facebook page. It is, I guess, Facebook / The Legal Dad. So it should pop up as Walsh Law PLLC. And so there's contact information on my Facebook page, my email addresses I just gave, and then once my website is up, my schedule will be linked to my website. So somebody can basically click on the link. It'll take them to my schedule, and they'll be able to schedule a free 30-minute consultation with me.
Fantastic. That's great. Thanks. Good luck. Great interview. Great interview. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
My name is Padraig Walsh. I am the Legal Dad.